everyone, and welcome to the Storyteller Shelf podcast. I'm Jackie Garcia-Morales, and that is Theresa Maria Villarreal down there, who is our other host. This is weird because we've been recording actually for a couple months now. So to kind of backtrack and realize we have to explain who we are, I think is catching us off guard. But happy March. We're happy to be here. We are doing a segment called Middle Grade Marvels, which is all about getting to know the authors behind the really epic middle grade reads. So we are super, super thrilled to bring April, who is a friend, on the show with us today, and we are going to dive right in because that's how we do. So April, tell us a little bit about you.
All right. Thank you for having me here. As you said, my name is April Henley. I am a no longer first-time author. I've been an author for a year now with my book, Treasures in a Bottle. It is the world's first novel coloring book, which means you can read the story and color it as you go. There are 50 illustrations included with the story, all done by a comic book artist friend of mine, Brian Brindley. And I just love writing fantasy. I love fantasy in general. I'm also a huge nerd and I love cosplay and Renaissance festivals. I also enjoy horseback riding and traveling, and I'm a big foodie. I love food. So there you go. That's me in a nutshell.
Yay. So you joined the right podcast because we are also big foodie people. And you mentioned cosplay. I think that's awesome. And this actually goes in with my question, which is if you were a superhero, what would your superhero name be and why?
So as I said, I'm a huge nerd. I appreciate and love Marvel and DC comic books. I have a huge collection. And on that note, a lot of the good names have been taken, but if I could be a superhero, first of all, I think it'd be a really cool power if I could create phantoms or living dreams in our reality, almost like a mirage, but these you can touch and they can touch you, which would be great for apprehending criminals, but also I could act out story scenes I'm not quite sure how to write. And my name would be Phantasma.
I think Phantasma is coming to movie theaters near us very soon.
I know it's the title of the book. It's a whole separate thing.
You know what? That's okay. You are in the right place. Like Theresa said, I'm a huge Marvel fan, and let's hope that someone from Disney is listening right now so they can contact April Henley, get this started, get it going, because it's going to be big. All right, April, what inspired you to write for middle grade in particular?
The middle grade was when I started reading more. And there were a variety of stories that appealed to my love of fantasy. There was the Chronicles of Narnia, The Hobbit, A Wrinkle in Time, The Unicorns of Balinor, just to name a few. And I felt my story of Merlin and mythical creatures in Treasures in a Bottle would appeal more to middle grade readers. But also, I really hope that it will inspire in them a love of reading. In my story, we have glimpses of the Arthurian legend, and I hope middle grade readers will be intrigued by it, and they will want to read and know more about King Arthur and the Knights of the Round Table, and of course, Merlin. So they will seek out those stories, and then from there, they'll seek out stories of medieval folklore and legend, and more fantasy and more magic, and just become the next generation of book and fantasy lovers.
That's awesome. And I like how you mentioned The Wrinkle in Time. I remember as a kid, they had the audiobook of it. I'm like, that's like one of my favorites. And we go on road trips. And my mom would actually put Wrinkle in Time, and where you would hear the Mrs. Who and Mrs. What's It and the echoing sound with who they were. And that still sticks to my mind. So I think we both have that great understanding and appreciation. And I agree with you. I feel like middle grade is when you really do start to have a love for reading. We need middle grade authors because this is the stepping stone for creating that love for reading and to have it continue on for the next generation and have it continue to adulthood. Is there a particular scene in your latest book that really sticks out to you and that you absolutely love, and why is that?
There are several moments and scenes in my book that stand out to me that I love. I loved writing them, and I don't want to give any good spoilers, but I will say that one scene I find profound is when Merlin visits the winged horses and the matriarch shows him the wonders of the evening sky. And after seeing one wonder in particular, no spoilers there is a conversation between them about heaven. And the matriarch says to Merlin, but heaven will never fade, even if all the lives on earth stop believing. And this is a significant statement in the story because in Treasures in a Bottle, mythical creatures exist so long as humans believe in them. But that's not how it is with heaven or God. When I was writing this scene, I did not have an outline. I did not have those words pre-memorized in my mind or written down anywhere. As with most of my story writing and with Treasures in a Bottle, most of it is discovery writing. When I sit down, I have no expectations of my characters. I let them lead the way. And this is the conversation these two characters had. And at the end of writing that scene, I was left with this sense of, wow, a powerful sensation. And I knew that it was written the way it needed to be and nothing was going to change. And it also was well received by my editor and my beta readers. No one touched that line. And I actually have been listening to lectures by Brandon Sanderson, who is a big fantasy writer. And in one of his recent lectures, he was telling his students, almost every author is a little bit of the plotter, a little bit of the pantser discovery writer. And you find out as you go along. I will admit that with my next fantasy novel, yes, I have a general idea of the story. I can see the scenes in my head, but I'm like, you know what? We'll get to that scene, but the characters are still in charge. I'm not going to force anyone to say anything. I'm just in the background writing what's happening.
I think all of us writers, we're conduits, right? Rather than creators. People call us, oh, you're a creator, you're making something. But a lot of us feel the opposite, that we're just channeling.
Yes, it exists in our imaginations, in our hearts. We're just there to bring it to life.
We're going to use that one in a commercial. Yeah.
I was thinking of when you were saying that, it reminded me of, you know, the movie Amadeus, when that scene,
yeah.
I love Amadeus, it's amazing. That scene where Salieri is like, so is this his rough draft? But there was no change in the work. So when you were saying that, I was like, that's like that scene where you're just writing down in dictation with it, if you think about it. So sometimes I feel like that too when I'm writing. I feel like the characters are already talking and I'm just like in dictation when I'm writing the story.
I love Stephen King, whole different genre, but in one of an interview with him, he was describing how for him it's like he's sitting at a campfire and one character at a time, they come up with a log, they put the log on the fire, and while that log is burning, they get their time to talk with him to tell him what happened from their perspective and what they were doing. And then the next character comes, and I was like, oh, that's a beautiful idea. I love it. And it's true. The characters do come to you and they're like, I said this, and this is how she reacted, and this is how I felt about it. And you're just capturing their lives on the page.
So we're going to bring April back, I think, for a huge in-depth analysis on all these techniques because we can't fit them all into one episode. April, let me take a right turn because sometimes we like to go beyond talking about our works as authors here. We want to give you a chance to speak about writing and publishing in general. So what is one trend or challenge or opportunity that you see in the world of middle grade literature today?
I think there is a challenge and an opportunity, and they are laced together. Theresa, you mentioned listening to the audiobook of A Wrinkle in Time. I'm listening to it right now. And there is a foreword by Madeleine L'Engle, and I loved it so much. The one challenge opportunity, what I want to touch on here is middle grade readers have a greater appreciation for high fantasy and historical fiction, and especially stories with deeply woven morals than I think grown-ups give them credit for. And my mom read to me Greek mythologies. She's the one who introduced me to The Hobbit, The Chronicles of Narnia, and A Wrinkle in Time. And I believe fantasies hold up a mirror to our reality so that we can understand it better. So touching on what Madeleine L'Engle was saying in her foreword, when she wrote A Wrinkle in Time, people thought it was too difficult for children. But in her words, it was too difficult for grown-ups. Children Like when she was writing it, her children were 7, 10, and 12, and she read to them every night what she had written that day, and they loved it. They understood it, and they wanted more. And children are open to new things, places, experiences, and excitements. And that's something really big in fantasy. I think fantasy is a great opportunity to let your imagination run wild. And it's a great way to introduce to young readers our reality in a way that they can process it. I think we can get important lessons across in that medium, in that genre. And so long as we write fearlessly and not focus so much on their age, I allow some innocence to prevail in your readership. But for example, in my book, I introduce lessons in compassion, friendship, forgiveness, anti-bullying, the importance of human connection and love. And I believe young readers will understand and they can carry those lessons forward in their own lives.
I think that's beautiful. And I think I like what you said, where she was talking about where she had her kids who were basically her beta readers, and that, yeah, the kids will understand it more than the adults because, it's kind of like, what is that word? Like, sometimes you get more out of them in a sense. You go back and read a series like the Chronicles of Narnia, or even, it's not series, but Wrinkle in Time. When you read those stories, it goes back and it does have a lesson. And I like what you said, that you need to have that. It reminds me of obviously I'm not that old, but when you think of He-Man, He-Man had the lesson at the end of the episode. Do you remember? Or even the Smurfs or things like that. Like, I think it's the same when you're reading a middle grade book specifically. It has those moral lessons that you need in storytelling that help kids to process. So I agree with you with that. Like, you need that for kids because you have to put it at their level too, that they can understand. And that actually brings me to something. If you could travel back in time, what's one piece of advice you'd give your younger creative self?
A younger creative self, I would be saying, read more books. That would be my other superpower. I want to read faster. To be a great writer, you have to read a lot and write a lot. I've written a lot between school and my professional writing career and author journey, but I really wish that I had read more in high school and college and in the last 10 years than I have, because I could be a better writer for it, for all I know. And the well of my imagination would be overflowing by now. And also, I would have seen more examples of good and bad writing. You can learn from both. That's the thing about reading books. If you want to be a good writer, you need to expose yourself to the stories that are timeless, that have lasted, and learn from them. You will gain more from reading. You will learn writing styles. You will learn dialogue. You will learn emotion and so much more. So yes, I wish I could go back and tell myself to have read more books because I would be much better off for it. And my TBR list wouldn't be so big.
I can relate to that.
Gosh, if my TBR pile fell on me, it would crush me. And most of the books I want to read are books that came out back when I was in middle grade or in high school because I never got to them. Either I was busy with assigned reading in school, which was great. I'm so grateful. Most of what I read in school was now banned, and I'm really grateful I read it. But yeah, there's a lot I'm going back to. I'm actually, like I said, I'm listening to the Wrinkle in Time series, like all of her books on audio. And I'm probably going to do the same for Chronicles of Narnia and Lord of the Rings, even though I read those, because I want to remember. I want to learn. I will say that Treasures in a Bottle will be available as an audiobook within the next month.
That's so exciting.
I'm so excited. I know like how hard you've been working on that, like in getting the rewrites and listening to it and all that. It's like amazing.
It has been a journey, and I love my narrator. He is wonderful. He did all the character voices. There's like 13 primary characters, and he did all of them. And I'm just like, and his narration just kind of evokes feelings of classic fantasy. Oh my gosh, I'm excited. I'm excited for it to come out. We're waiting for quality checks by Amazon.
All right, we have one more question, April. What's one thing you'd like your readers to take away from your work as an author?
I think one thing I want my readers to take away from my work, from Treasures in a Bottle, is that it was my dream story to write. I had the idea when I was 16. I wrote the first 30 pages, the beginning and the end, not the middle, on my grandma's computer, and I filed the pages away. And over the years, I revisited it again and again. I was not ready yet. Just kept putting it back. I'm like, I'm not ready. And finally, at age 28, I sat down and started writing the whole story. A friend of mine told me once, there are people who like to read what you read. So chances are there are people who will like to read what you write. And I think it's so important for writers to remember that, to write fearlessly and honestly, to write what you want to read in your work, because no one knows your story better than you do. It's not close to anyone's heart like it is to yours, and your work will turn out better for it. Readers can come away from Treasures in a Bottle, this cozy fantasy I've written, with feelings of joy and wonder and hope and a satisfying ending, because that's what I wanted to read in this, my story that had been with me for more than half my life. And most importantly, I wrote it the way that I wanted to read it. I really appreciate the questions, and maybe hopefully I've inspired not just readers, but future writers out there.
Thank you so much, April, for coming on, for being with us today, talking about your amazing book and all of your words of wisdom for the Middle Grade Marvel series. And to all of our listeners, thank you for listening to us, and make sure you subscribe to our podcast and to our newsletter. And I feel like we are leaving something out. Is it
one more thing?
Yes, one more thing.
If you want to see what April is doing, where you can find her on the internet, and where you can buy her book to support her, please go to our website, thestorytellershelfpodcast.com. Go to episodic calendar and click on April's name.
And for our self-published picture book authors and for our illustrators, make sure that you check out our book awards where you can sign up. And thank you guys so much again, and tune in next time for another episode of the Storyteller Shelf podcast.